I'm Bet from Bet's Makes, and today we're going to be making a Valentine's Day banner. And we're going to put together little pieces like this. These ones are small ones with little holes across the top so that we can string them. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So first thing we want to do is move over to Design Space because we are going to create this from scratch. And all I used for material here are 2 pieces of scrap cardstock, and I used a piece of scrap vinyl to put the X's, the O's, and the heart. So we're starting a new project in Design Space, and what's important here is that you just have a blank slate to work with. We're going to be using several tools today. We are going to be using some shapes. We are going to be using some slice, some weld, and we are going to do some alignment as well as some offset. So there's several different things that we're going to be using here. We're going to start by making our basic shape that we want to use for our banner. We're just going to go with the simple free ones here. We're going to pick on a square. And I'll just bring it to the center of the screen here so it's easier for you to see. You'll see there's a lock here. I'm just going to click on that lock to unlock it. If you come up to the top, you will also see that the size is unlocked here. We are going to leave the width the same, but we want this to be 4 inches long. Now, I could pull this down, but I'd probably mess up all the measurements. So for the width, I'm going to leave it 2. I'm going to come over here to the height. I'm going to change that to 4. That's a perfect size. Then I'm just going to click on the lock to make sure that this is the piece I'm going to be working with. Now, right now it's set to basic cut, which is no problem, but it's the color. So let's click on the color here, and I will just give it a pale color in the background. That's so we have something to work with. Now I am going to duplicate it, and the reason I duplicate it just in case I mess up with my original and I don't want to have to go back and recreate it. Now, a couple of ways we can do this. We need the bottom part of the banner here, but we also need 2 little holes at the top where we can thread through our items. So I'm going to start with the thread through at the top. So let's grab our shapes. I am just going to need a circle, and it doesn't matter if it's black, and I'm not going to unlock this one, but I want a nice 1/4 inch. So I'm going to type in 0.25 under the width that's up here, hit the enter key, and you'll notice that you also get a height of 0.25. So let's just move our little circle into place where we want to have it. That looks pretty good. We can have one little hole here, but we need another one on the other side. So all I'm going to do is click on this, come over to the top of the layers panel and click duplicate. I'm just going to eyeball to the edges approximately where I want them. Now we're going to be aligning these, so don't worry if they don't line up right away. So I'm going to pick on these first 2. I'm going to click and shift click, and you'll see they're both selected by looking inside the layers panel. I want to make sure these are aligned properly. So I'm going to align them to the top. And because I want to keep them together and I want to do some other alignments, I'm going to come down to the bottom of the layers panel and click on weld. As you can see in the layers panel, when I click here, we get a basic cut, which is 2 circles, which is fine. So now let me just highlight both of these together. And what we're going to do is come back here to align, and we're going to center them horizontally. Now we know that those are going to be the perfect hole cut. So let's just highlight them both. You should find that slice becomes available at the bottom. I am going to click on slice. I'm going to move my little tag out of the way, and there we go. We have a couple of extra holes here. So I'm just going to take these and move them over to the side. I don't need them right now, but I just want to keep a duplicate just in case. Now, the other thing we need to do with this is cut out a piece in the bottom in the shape of a triangle. So let's go back to our shapes. Let's grab a triangle. Now it's going to be 2 inches wide, but if I put this down here, that's a pretty big cut in here. So I don't want it to be cut that high. So I'm going to unlock it. And from the unlock, the height, I'm going to make it 0.75. And then I'm going to lock it back up. What I need to do now is select them both, and I'm going to align them to the bottom. I'm also going to align them center horizontally. Now we should have 2 inches on here. Let me just click this one. Is it still 2 inches wide? It is. It's 0.75 high. Let's check our other one, and it is 2 inches wide. Okay, perfect. So now we have the 2 of these pieces together. And that's not that deep of a cut. I think I had 1 inch before, but this will work. Let's just grab those 2 together. And I'm looking at it. No, I don't like the bottom one. So let's just come back here and unlock it. Let's change it to 1 inch. I think 1 inch is going to look better. So change it to 1 inch here. There we go. Just 1. I'll have to realign it to the bottom just to make sure everything fits. Align to the bottom. That looks good. Now that's a better cut for me. So let's just highlight them both. And once again, we are going to slice. Move this out of the way, and you'll see I have an extra piece underneath here, so we can get rid of this as well. We'll get rid of these later. We're just building our first piece here. All right, so now we have the back that we know we're going to use for our banners. Now I'm going to do some other things to it. So just because I'm going to do that, I am going to duplicate it and just move it out of the way. There we go. And work on this one. So what we want to do now is come up here to offset. And you notice how the offset goes a bit bigger. What we want to do is go to the negative side. But you'll also notice that we don't get the little holes coming through here, that we have a problem with the holes in the fact that it doesn't want to be able to go around those holes. So we know that we have an issue that we're going to have to solve by doing it another way. Now I can bring this back out to a larger size, just like that, but it's also not going to give us a cut out around the holes. So I'm just going to go away from that, and I'm just going to move this to the side. Remember, I said we wanted to keep a duplicate. So let's just grab that. Where's those 2 little eyes down here? I'm just going to show you another little trick. Let's pull this up here. We already know they're aligned, but we have to align those horizontally. That looks good. But once again, I'm going to take a copy of this, because you never know what's going to happen here. Okay, so I'm going to take this. And once again, I am going to slice it. I'll move these 2 little sliced pieces out of the way. Now I'm going to be working with this for just 1 second. What I want to do here now is go back to my offset, and I want to go offset to the negative, and you'll see I get a nice little curve in here. Now that's a really important aspect, but you'll notice it's minus 0.22222. I'm going to make this an even number so that I can remember it. 0.25. I am going to apply it. Perfect. Now I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to do that same offset, and you'll notice it's 0.25, and I am going to apply it. Now it's missing the holes at the top, and this one is not. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 pieces, and I'm going to make it exactly the way I want it. I'm going to have to align these to the top. I'm going to make one a different color so you can see what's going on. Let's make this top one blue. Okay, so let's highlight both of these together. We are going to align them to the top, and we are going to align them horizontally. Perfect. Now what I need to do is gather both of these together, and I am going to slice. Let's take this piece out, and this piece out, and this piece out, and you'll notice that I have 2 perfect ones that I want to work with. So now when I push this into place, or this one into place, I get the perfect one that I want. So these are the extras. Move these out of the way. So make sure you go back through this video and make sure that you've got all those little pieces that I put together to make this particular banner. Now, I don't need my extra pieces right now, but I'm going to leave them for now because I want you to do a couple more things here. Now, we are going to make 3 of these, but we're going to have different designs on it. So, for example, we may want a large letter O, as I had in my sample that I showed before. And that's the large letter O. You can see off into the side here. We also want a large letter X. And we want a whole series of hearts. So we know we have 3 different things that we want to do with this banner in order to make it work perfectly. So let's start by going over to our text, and we want a capital O. Looks good. Okay. And that's all I need from this is the O. Come over here. I'm going to put it on. I am going to simply unlock it. And I'm going to drag it around till I'm happy with the O that's going to go on there. I'm going to lock it in place. I'm going to make it red so it's easier. Perfect. Now that looks great. Okay, so I actually want to duplicate our O. And I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to change it to an X. And it comes up the same size, which is absolutely perfect. As you can see, they will fit together just nicely. So I already have the X in place. I'm just going to make it the same color red. Now you'll notice that I can't access operations up here for the X. Even when I click on it, it doesn't appear. That means you have to come over here to the layers panel, click on the X, come over here and change it to the red color. Now, these are the colors I was using on this canvas. So it shows them all here. So I don't have to guess what it was. So now I have an O and an X. Now, the last thing I want to do is make a whole series of little hearts that are going to fit on here. I just have to come back and pick on the heart. Now, you could pick the other heart if you're an Access member. And I'll just make these smaller hearts. I don't want them too big. Right about there looks good. And once again, I can pick on the same red because I want them to cut out of the same cloth. So what I want to do here is put a series of hearts that are just going to fit on the inside. So I click on one and I can duplicate it and move it to where I want it. And I can duplicate it again. I am clicking on duplicate, but I could push the Control C or Command C and then Control V or Command V. And I can paste things in that way. Now you don't have to have all of these the same size. You can make, a smaller one. Let's talk about this just a little bit. I've got a nice small one up there. I'm going to copy and paste it. And maybe I'll add one down here. Too much in order. So let me just push this in this way a little bit. And maybe I will add another small one. Change the size of this other one. There we go. So we've got a nice little design going, all these different hearts. Now I want to select all of these hearts. And what I want to do with it is I want to weld them together. Now I know they're going to fit, so I'm just going to drag these other pieces out of the way so I don't have to select them individually. So I'm just going to drag over top. What I'm going to do is come down to the bottom of the layers panel and I am going to weld. And that makes these one piece to cut, one piece to cut, and one piece to cut. Now I'm doing 3. Now I could just cut this 3 times, but I prefer to just duplicate a couple of times. So I have all the pieces that I want. Duplicate, duplicate. Okay. I remember all these other pieces we had. I'm just going to highlight them all and delete them because I no longer need them. Now, nothing has to be attached as we're not bending anything. These are the middle pieces and these are the bottom pieces. Now, when I go to put them on a mat, These are going to be on 3 different mats, but what I want to do is make sure that these pieces and these pieces, the middle pieces, are all cut out on one mat, even though I will use 2 different styles of paper. I want one on the bottom and one on the top. Today, I'm going to show you that by just simply selecting these 3 and changing it to the same color, they will all go to the same mat. And that is a really important part. When I get to the mat, I can arrange them the way I want. So it looks like we're pretty well ready to go here. So we're going to save it. And this is Valentine Banner. And let's see, this is part of our January makes. If I can find January here. There we go. And I'm just going to save it. Now this gives you the ability to add collections. If you're an Access member, you get to name a lot of collections. Otherwise, you're restricted to 3, I believe. I'm just going to save this. I just don't want to lose the work we're working on. Now we're going to come over here to make it. And this time we're going to go on the mat. I'm using my Maker 3 today, and you'll see how all of these are at the top. All I need to do is place these down at the bottom so that I can use 2 different types of paper. I could probably have done it side by side and just move them over a bit, but that means everything will go on one sheet. And if I come over here, because I welded, the hearts all stay together, so I don't have a problem. All right, we are going to use a medium cardstock here. And then for this one, I am going to be using a removable vinyl. So I'm going to show you how to put all of this together in just a second. So let's get this ready to cut. Let's select my device. Just take a second for it to find it. Now we're starting the top one up here. Make sure you click on the one you're cutting. You have to watch to make sure you are where the white square is. We're going for a medium cardstock, and it tells me to load my fine point blade. So here we are over at the demo desk, and in behind here I have my Maker 3, but I just wanted to show you what I've done on my mats here. Now for the part of the banner, I had some scrap papers that I was working on, and I'll just take the sheet off the top here. So I put a nice bright color in behind. This was a scrap piece that I had, and I just want to make sure they're on the mat here. Give them a good rub. And then this was a spare piece of red that I had from another project. So this one is ready to go. And for the other mat, I had a scrap piece of removable vinyl, just happened to be pink. And I just put it up in the top corner, and that's what I'm going to be using to cut on the second piece. Just put this out of the way for a second, and let's bring in our machine so you can see it here. And I have my fine cut blade in place. So when I'm loading the mat, one of the biggest things that you have to do when you're loading your mat, you can hold it both sides. I hold it in the center with my thumb and just give it a push. And that's going to make sure it's going to go in straight. And that's a big key to a lot of things, is to make sure it's going to go in straight. Now it's just going to be a second or two. It's only cutting. And see, this is coming down a little bit here. Push it down. And we're going to get ready to cut right here. Now my mats are getting older and losing a bit of the stick, which means I need to wash them with a little bit of Dawn soap, give them a light rub with a sponge, and then dry them flat. So this is going to be pretty quick. It's just cutting the holes to start. Since we only have 3 banners that we're putting together, this is going to be pretty simple. All right, our first mat is done. I'm just going to unload it. Now I have to go back to Design Space because it wants to pick the paper for the second one. And we are using a premium vinyl, and I'm just going to click on premium vinyl, and it's asking me for the cut as well. So let me just put this one off to the side. Let's bring this one over. See that it's, make sure it's rubbed right down. Once again, you want to make sure you load it straight and flat. And there we go. First thing the Cricut does is measure, what your mat is. So it's got a lot of sensors to know exactly what you're putting into place, including which blade you have in place. And it's a lot easier than turning a dial sometimes. If you picked up my Cricut tips and tricks book, and the link is below this video in order to get that, that is a free guide, and a lot of tips and tricks that I have are provided in that book. Now we're just cutting the little hearts, and we're cutting the X and the O. And you're probably wondering, how easy is it to transfer the vinyl onto another piece of cardstock? Well, for the X and the O, it's not going to be that difficult. For the set of hearts, it's going to be a little trickier because we need to use a little bit of transfer paper in order to do that. Okay, let's just eject this right now. Just move this off to the side, and I'm going to click finish into design space here to make sure that's out of the way. I'm just going to turn my machine off and close it to give us some room. Okay, first thing, I'm going to turn the mat over and peel off my vinyl. Normally I would just leave it on the vinyl, but I've got a lot of extra space here. Another thing is to always protect your mat. Make sure that's on top. You don't want to have a lot of dust or anything on these mats. And then of course our other pieces here, I'm going to flip the mat, and I'm just going to pull that one off to start. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the top. I am rolling my mat off. Don't roll it too hard. If you do, you could run into breaking your mat, and I have done that as well. Okay, I've got both pieces off. Now I'm left with a bunch of little extra circles here, which I'm just going to shoot off to the side here. I am actually going to save those circles so that I can use them in another project. Now, I'm really bad. I do use my fingernails a lot when I'm working with my Cricut. I could probably use the tools such as my scraper in order to get a cleaner edge. And then I put my protective cover over top and then just move that out of the way. Now I have a little jar here that I keep all my extra little bits. And here we go. I'll just keep them in there. Now we've got the backings all ready to go here. I have some more nice scrap paper. And the same with this one. I've got my 1, 2, 3 pieces. What did I do with the other one? Did it fall on the ground? It must have. Okay, I just turn these over. You find my other piece. Must have moved it over. Okay, just a second here. Let me find that piece. So now we have all of these pieces. It's stuck to the back of my mat. So here we have another piece of scrap we can use for later. All right, one last little piece. We've all these wonderful pieces that we're going to glue on. We can glue them first and then put our stickers on, or we can glue them a little later. So let's start. I'm going to put them on first because it's a lot easier to deal with this. Now, I can see the outlines of this, and I know I've got way too much of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around some of this. And that is so I can use this other vinyl for another day. So let me just cut that off. I have another piece of scrap that I can use. Now we have the X and the O and the hearts. So I'm just going to cut them apart. I'll work with them individually. Make sure I don't get that heart off the edge. Okay, great. Now these first pieces aren't going to be so bad. I'm going to take out my toolbox here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on, it's just my glue mat. I'm going to find a tool right here. And what I'm going to do with this Cricut tool is simply get rid of what I call the negative parts. So I'm just going to go through here. And a lot of people don't like doing the weeding, but once you get going on it with the little hooks, it's actually quite pleasant to work with. Now I'm pulling on this, and as you'll notice that it has some edges here, and I can keep pulling all the way around, and I had to only work on it once. So now we have our X all ready to go. Now this is definitely scrap that we won't be using for a while or at all. Now we have the O in here as well. Now I have to take out the center of the O. I'm going to keep grappling with it until I can lift it up a bit. There we go. I'll just put it with my other scrap. And then we have the outside edge, and I should be able to pick it up from the corner here. There we go. And now I have my O all ready to go. So we're almost there for putting this one together. Now the last one here is I want my hearts. I'm going to come up from the top corner where we have an edge. There we are. And I am going to pull it around all of the different hearts that we put in there. Oh, it looks really good. Now it's pretty easy. As you can see, we have hearts, an X and an O, and I know they fade away a little bit in this particular light. Now, the next thing we want to do is transfer these onto our little tags. Now, the first two won't be that bad because all I'm going to do is bend this down, grab the corner, make sure I grab it nicely. This is a little tricky. There we go. As long as you can get it started, you're going to be good to go. So what I generally do is I just bend my paper a little bit, and then I want to place it without pushing it down. I want to place it right about there. And then all I have to do is take the bottom piece and just gently pull it away. Now I've got my O in place. Looks great. Now we'll repeat that process with this one. This one's a little more difficult as we have two edges, so I may have to get it started with my tool here. So you don't want to bend it. You just want to get it up off to start. Just want it started. There we are. That one's started. There you go. It's sticking to me, but it's started. And then I want to get this one started as well. Perfect. So once I have them started, just a matter of bending my paper over. So we have a start mark. And then we're going to line this up as best as possible. Turn it sideways for me. And I am eyeballing it. You could do a better job of measuring it, getting it exactly where you want it. Now, the key here is to get the top pieces exactly where you want them. You can see I'm just going to be pulling this down, and you're just going to pull it little bit by little bit and pushing it down. Same thing all the way. As you can see, I'm just pushing it down bit by bit, and that'll stop any bubbles from happening. All right, we have our X and we have our O. And now the more difficult part is taking these hearts, because even if I start them, there's too many pieces to start. So I'm going to have to use a piece of transfer paper. Now I have all these scrap pieces of transfer paper that I use. Just grab a small one here. Make sure it's going to fit over top, and yes, it will. I've used this transfer paper before, so it's not, it's not being wasted. What I'm going to do is just lie that over top. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And I'm just going to leave the rest of it intact, because my goal here, so I'll just take my scraper, is to get those hearts onto that transfer paper. I can get it started here. No, I just want to. So, and that's, probably one of the more difficult things to get these guys started. So I often use, there we go. As long as I can get it started. It's usually really easy after that point, because you want to have your hearts exactly the way you want them. Pull it. Make sure we got that one. And this one's coming up nicely. Sometimes they don't want to come exactly right away. So I just take my little, yep, up it comes. Let's make sure this next one is. Now I know I've got my fingers in there. Yep, next one's coming up nicely. You're probably wondering, how the heck are you going to be able to do this on cardstock and not have stuff, stick? Well, that's the little cheat way that I do these. Okay, so now we have all of these onto our transfer paper. And once again, I'm just going to roll it up and we're going to figure out exactly where we want it. Let's try and line them up pretty good here. Just get that one up into the corner. That might be too far over. Okay. Right about there. Let's go right about there. Okay, I'm just going to hold those down. And I'm going to be taking them off the transfer paper. So all I'm going to do is just pull the transfer paper down. You'll see how I've got it a little bit crooked. Because it's on the transfer paper, it's going to be really easy then to move this around so it's going to fit exactly the way I want it. So I'm going to do it from the side this time because I didn't want it too crooked. I guess that's about right. Now, the biggest trick here is you want to make sure that everything sits down on your tag and that only the transfer paper is released. And you're just going to take it down one little bit at a time. And you'll see that the transfer paper doesn't really affect your cardstock whatsoever. And because I didn't take it all apart, I can just put my transfer paper back into place to use for another day. So now we have all of these things ready and we're ready to do some gluing. I just want to move my glue mat over here, protect everything as much as possible. So let's start by gluing on our first part of our banner. I'm just going to turn these ones upside down. And what I'm using for glue here is our Aleene's original tacky glue. And I love to use tacky glue. And the reason is when I put something in place, I can move it around until I know it's exactly the way I want it. It doesn't like glue it in place so hard initially. And I also lay it on its side so it's easier for the glue to come out to the top right away. Okay, so now another set of eyeballs goes over top here. Gently put it into place and just sort of move it so you are happy with the result. And there we go. Yeah, I like that result. So that's a nice little heart one. And this is the one we had done before. So you can see that it's very similar. We just changed the size of the hearts. Okay, so the hearts can be moved off to the side. I'm going to do the same thing with the X and the O. Now, as I'm mentioning various little tips and tricks, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because I put on a lot of videos showing you all kinds of little things. And of course, you want to be on my mailing list because I send out Tuesday tips and all kinds of different things that you can learn and do these little tips and tricks all the time. Every week, there's something new. And I also give a lot of free stuff away to new subscribers. So you can click on get your free Cricut tips and tricks guide right below this video. And you will be really happy with what you get with that. So we have our X now as well. And the last one we want to put together here, of course, is our O. And there we go. So last one, you'll notice I don't put it out to the edge. That's because when I push it down, it will also create a little bit of an edge. And there we have it. All three pieces are put together. I just have to locate my other one here. And there's our O from before. So now we have a really nice set of banners that we can use. I'll just move this out of the way. So here we go. We have done our Valentine's banner, and I really hope you enjoyed putting this together and learned a few tips and tricks. And once again, don't forget to get our copy of our free tips and tricks guide right below this video. So until next time, happy crafting.